On this Tuesday night, the Liberals lose more by-elections. The pressure on the Prime Minister.
Someone who can really inspire Canadians is Justin Trudeau.
And the Liberals' surprise move to offer the opposition a non-confidence vote, which could trigger an election next week. A sophisticated attack across Lebanon using pagers. More than 2,000 people are injured as hundreds of devices detonate simultaneously. Disturbing charges against Sean Diddy Combs.
He's got the full weight of the federal government down on him.
The many crimes he's accused of committing. Plus, hashtag more power for parents.
This is the right thing to do.
The major changes for teenagers on Instagram.
Global National with Donna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. We begin with another sign of the political shift underway in Canada and a move by the Liberals that could, in theory, trigger an election call next week. The Liberals lost two more by-elections on Monday. A Bloc Québécois candidate won LaSalle-Émard-Verdun, what's long been a Liberal stronghold. And in Winnipeg, the NDP held on to Elmwood-Transcona, despite a strong campaign by the Conservatives to flip it. The Liberals were shut out, and with pressure building on the Prime Minister, his Liberal minority government, which needs opposition support to hold on to power, appears to be calling their bluff, offering a chance at a non-confidence motion next week, which could topple the government. We'll have more on that in just a moment. First, Mackenzie Gray on those by-election losses.
There were early signs in Montreal.
It is a testament.
With less than 5% of polls reporting, Liberal candidate Laura Palestini addressed her supporters.
I am truly blessed. Thank you very much.
Then quickly left her supposed victory party. Palestini's political instincts proving correct, when just before 3 a.m. it was official. The Liberals losing a seat that former Prime Minister Paul Martin used to hold to the Bloc Québécois.
I had many emotions. Of course, today, I confess I'm a bit exhausted. I've only slept for 3 hours.
The Bloc coming up the middle in a tight three-way fight, handing Prime Minister Justin Trudeau his second by-election loss of 2024, after the Conservatives took a former Liberal stronghold in Toronto 3 months ago.
Obviously, it would have been nicer to be able to win and hold Verdun, but there's more work to do, and we're going to stay focused on doing it.
Despite losing safe seats in both Montreal and Toronto, the heart of the Liberal electoral coalition, it hasn't swayed Liberal support for Trudeau.
Mr. Trudeau has the full support of his cabinet and his caucus.
Someone who can really inspire Canadians is Justin Trudeau.
You know, the sun's going to rise tomorrow. It's going to set tonight, and we intend to win it the next time.
The winners in the Winnipeg by-election.
I will fight for Elmwood-Transcona. I will fight for Canadians.
The NDP, holding off the Conservatives despite the Tories increasing their vote by 16%. Jagmeet Singh's party finished over 40% ahead of the Liberals, but that hasn't changed his political calculus on potentially taking down the government.
I'm going to look at each vote, look at each motion that comes before us and make a determination.
The determination Liberal supporters now must make, Donna. Are there any safe seats under Justin Trudeau after yet another by-election blow?
Mackenzie, thanks. Our Ottawa Bureau Chief Mercedes Stephenson is with me now. Mercedes, this surprise move by the Liberals, they seem to be prepared to test the resolve of the NDP in the Bloc next week and are effectively giving the opposition a chance to defeat the government. Tell us about that.
Donna, the government could fall and Canadians could find themselves in an election as early as next Wednesday. The Conservatives will get their chance to try to bring down the Liberal government faster than they were expecting. A lot of people thought the Liberals would push this back, take their time. Instead, they are flipping the tables and basically saying, okay, try it, bring it on. Let's see how it goes when you try to take us down. As for what the confidence vote will look like, well, my sources say the Conservatives will probably keep it pretty simple. Something like the House has lost confidence in this government's ability to govern, rather than something specific like, say, the carbon tax. And the reason for that will be the hopes of maxing out the number of opposition parties they can get on board. Now, the NDP will be facing its first test since tearing up that supply and confidence agreement. But unless the Bloc Québécois also votes to bring down the government, a reason why the Tories might keep it a general motion, Justin Trudeau will stay in power. An election's always possible, but most of this drama is likely to be political theater.
Okay, and Mercedes, I also want to ask you about a confrontation on Parliament Hill today between the NDP leader and some protesters. Those protesters filmed it. It's a group called Canadian Free Living. They posted it online. Let's watch a little bit of it and then you can tell us what's going on.
Corrupted bastard. Oh, what did I say something? What? What did I say something? Did you say nothing? What was it that? You got something to say?
I didn't say corrupted bastard, but I said.
Is that what you said?
No, I did not say that.
Who said it?
Somebody behind me said that.
Was it me? Was it you? No. You sure? If it was me, I'd admit it, buddy. Was it you or not? If it was me, I'd admit it. What'd you say then? I didn't see nothing. It wasn't me. It was a gentleman behind me, I guess. Who is it then? Point it out. I have no idea who it was, buddy. My word. You sure it's not you? No. 100%. You're a coward. You're not going to say it to my face. That's what's thought. Say what? You didn't. If I said something like that to you, I'd admit it.
Donna, Jagmeet Singh had clearly had enough there, the normally soft-spoken NDP leader taking on protesters who softened their tone pretty quickly when he turned around and confronted them. These protesters are part of a group that's been on Parliament Hill this week demanding an election and making their frustration known to MPs. In fact, police from the parliamentary precinct here in Ottawa were serving essentially as crossing guards to get them across onto Parliament Hill, MPs that is. But this is not just MPs that this is happening to. Yesterday at the unveiling of the new location for the Terry Fox statue, this happened.
Something bigger than yourself, which I think is important.
Terry Fox's brother was there just off camera as the protesters yelled traitor. And by the way, that's not an MP you're looking at. The protests are the remnants of the convoy that in many ways are increasingly becoming a perennial feature around Parliament Hill and perhaps symptomatic of the change in our tone in politics. Donna?
Distressing to see. Mercedes Stephenson in Ottawa, thanks. There's a positive sign. Interest rates could soon come down a bit. Canada's inflation rate has fallen to its lowest level since February of 2021. Inflation slowed to 2% in August, and that's what the Bank of Canada has been targeting to trigger a rate cut. The drop is mostly due to gas prices, and as Touria Izri reports, housing costs for Canadians are still high.
It's the Bank of Canada's magic number.
We are determined to get inflation down to the 2% target, our 2% inflation target, and return to the 2% target.
After aggressively hiking interest rates for 2 years to tame sky-high inflation, the Bank of Canada got what it wanted. A rare piece of good news for an embattled government.
The light at the end of the tunnel. Inflation is back to where it was before COVID first hit.
Before the pandemic, no one would have blinked at 2%. Today, economists see it as a move towards normalcy.
What's even more impressive is that the Canadian economy has managed through this without going into recession.
Falling gas prices helped cool inflation last month, coupled with lower retail costs. Even as inflation drops, prices have not come down to pre-pandemic levels.
Prices are growing slow, but they're still quite high. And this is the challenge.
Rental inflation actually went up last month.
Rent, groceries, well, that's what most of my money is spent on just in general.
Month to month has gotten really, really difficult and really scary, because the dollar just doesn't go as far as it used to anymore.
There has been some relief this summer with 3 interest rate cuts in a row. That number now stands at 4.25%. Ontario Premier Doug Ford wants it to come down further and faster. Posting on social media, the Bank of Canada needs to double down on its own rate cuts and get out of our way. The Bank of Canada's next interest rate announcement is near the end of October. And while a rate cut is almost a given, the question is how much? With a growing number of economists saying it's time to slash 50 basis points, rather than the seemingly standard 25. Donna?
Touria Izri in Ottawa, thanks. Health Canada has approved Moderna's updated COVID-19 vaccine to roll out this fall. It's been reformulated to better protect against the latest COVID variant, which is an offshoot of Omicron. Earlier this month, Health Canada asked provinces and territories to get rid of their older COVID vaccines to ensure the most up-to-date shot is used for the coming respiratory virus season. Opposition to COVID vaccines is one of the things that unites members of Alberta's governing United Conservative Party. Premier Danielle Smith faces a leadership review in November, which will be a big test. She is making a televised address tonight. Heather Yurix-West explains how the Premier has been working to keep her supporters on side.
Danielle Smith.
2 years after winning the leadership of Alberta's governing United Conservative Party, Premier Danielle Smith is campaigning once again.
She's been busy, and she has been touring the province and has been doing a lot of public events where she has been very frank in those events.
Except that those events have been for a UCP audience alone. On November 2nd, Danielle Smith's leadership is up for review.
These leadership review processes for any Conservative premier have not been easy, dating back to Ralph Klein 2004, Ed Stelmach and Alison Redford.
Thank you for coming.
Jason Kenney, too, saw a low approval rating in 2022 sink a 2-decade-long political career. But campaigning to the party faithful is very different than Alberta at large. And within these UCP-only town halls, the Premier has been discussing some pretty controversial policy plans, like a proposal to turn rural hospitals over to the province's Catholic Health Authority, and a new Alberta Bill of Rights.
Talks about the right to bear arms, the right of self-defense of your home and property, freedom from discrimination, which sounds good until you read the rest of it, which is freedom from discrimination, especially diversity, inclusion.
Populist rhetoric similar to what U.S. presidential candidate Donald Trump is saying, someone who is popular among many UCP voters.
And so I think a lot of those culture war flashpoints are being brought top of mind for a lot of voters, whether they're on the right side of the spectrum or the left side of the spectrum.
The rest of the province will hear directly from the Premier later tonight. Danielle Smith using taxpayer dollars to buy almost 10 minutes worth of airtime across several TV networks, including Global, as she makes an announcement almost 6 weeks before the start of Alberta's fall session. Donna?
All right, Heather Yurix West in Calgary, thanks. In Lebanon, there's been an unprecedented coordinated attack that killed at least 9 people and injured almost 3,000 others. Pagers used by Hezbollah members exploded, causing widespread carnage. A warning, you may find video in this story distressing. Security cameras in this Beirut market captured the moment one of the devices detonated. The Iran-backed militant group calls it a heinous attack and blames Israel. Tonight, Redmond Shannon explains why Israel is the prime suspect.
3:30 in the afternoon. Hundreds of simultaneous explosions right across Lebanon and in parts of Syria. The source, pagers, among them this model. The Iran-backed militant group Hezbollah is believed to have acquired pagers in recent months as its members look to avoid their phones being tracked. Although the explosions were small, many of the injuries are devastating. The devices kept inside pockets. Iran's ambassador to Lebanon among almost 3,000 hurt. 200 are critical. Hezbollah says its fighters are among those killed, as is a young girl. It's promising a just punishment for Israel, although Israel has not taken responsibility.
This is clearly an Israeli operation. There's nobody else that one would point to in the region.
The main question is how, rather than who.
This looks very much like maybe a substitute battery system, or a full battery has been inserted somewhere along the supply chain.
Electronics counter-terrorism specialist Bobby Strawbridge worked for the British Army and the Pentagon. He suspects the batteries may have held some explosives.
A trigger signal would have been sent to the devices, be that from the normal paging network or specifically on a certain frequency to the device itself.
Earlier Tuesday, Israel's security agency says it foiled a Hezbollah bomb plot to kill a former Israeli security official. And Israel's security cabinet said returning residents to its northern region bordering Lebanon is now an official war goal. On Monday, a US special envoy for the conflict urged Israel not to trigger a full-scale war with Hezbollah. Washington says it was not involved in planning the pager attacks. Donna?
Redmond, thanks. A litany of lurid accusations coming out the charges music mogul Sean Diddy Combs is facing. Music mogul Sean "Diddy" Combs has been denied bail and ordered held in jail as he faces charges of sex trafficking and racketeering. The rapper is accused of using his fame to engage in a persistent and pervasive pattern of abuse towards women, coercing many to commit sex acts against their will. Jackson Prosco reports in a warning some of the details in the story are disturbing.
For decades, Sean P. Diddy Combs reveled in his bad boy image. Now, facing serious charges, he's pleading innocence. Prosecutors in New York say that for more than a decade, he sexually abused and threatened women and others around him, forcing them to engage in days-long sexual performances with male sex workers as part of a criminal enterprise.
Combs allegedly planned and controlled the sex performances, which he called freak-offs, and he often electronically recorded them.
Investigators say Combs used illegal drugs to subdue the participants. Police say they recovered automatic weapons from his home.
The victims did not believe they could refuse Combs without risking their security or facing more abuse.
Combs was arrested in New York Monday. Tuesday, he appeared in court as 3 of his children looked on.
He's going to fight this with all of his energy and all of his might.
The music star's troubles began when his former girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, sued him last year, claiming rape, abuse, and sex trafficking. His mansions in Miami and Los Angeles were raided in March. In May, disturbing video was obtained by CNN showing Combs assaulting Ventura.
This is really serious. He's got the full weight of the federal government down on him.
Prosecutors allege Combs is a flight risk with a long history of seeking to bribe and illegally influence witnesses. Legal experts believe he could face up to life in prison if ultimately convicted of the most serious charges. Jackson Prosco, Global News, Washington.
Ahead, will new teen accounts on Instagram actually protect young people from dangers online? The Toronto International Film Festival has gone ahead with the screening of the film Russians at War, and protesters are not happy about it.
Shame on TIFF! Shame on TIFF!
The Ukrainian community says it's a disgrace TIFF went ahead with the North American premiere. TIFF had postponed the screening over what it called significant threats to festival operations and public safety. The first-person documentary is about soldiers on the front lines of Russia's war with Ukraine. It's been criticized as propaganda, but both TIFF and the Russian-Canadian filmmaker deny those claims. How to protect kids online is a constant question for parents, and tech companies have long been accused of turning a blind eye. Now, Meta is rolling out a sweeping update billed as the biggest change to Instagram in years. It's meant to protect teenagers. Kyle Benning explains what's changing and whether it's likely to make any difference.
Introducing Instagram teen accounts.
Meta, Instagram's parent company, is trying to reassure parents that its platform can be safe for teens.
We know that they can't manage this all on their own. They're just not capable of knowing all the ins and outs of all these apps and tools.
The changes include making all accounts for anyone 16 and younger private. There are also sensitive content restrictions on images that show people fighting or promote cosmetic procedures.
Plus, teens under 16 require parental approval to change safety settings.
Meta's executive team says it has introduced additional safeguards, including using a piece of ID for age verification.
We also use something called Yoti, which basically looks at facial features and says this person is under 18, this person is over 18.
The evidence is damning. Data from the Canadian Community Health Survey found that after 2012, there were changes in mental health outcomes among all age groups, but it was heightened for young Canadians, with men and boys between 15 and 30 reporting 15% decreases in their mental health between 2009 and 2019. That figure was double for women in the same age bracket.
No one has to go through the types of things that your families have had to suffer.
Social media platform CEOs testified in Washington earlier this year. Parents of children who took their own lives receiving an apology from Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg. But elected officials say this is the least these platforms can do.
There is not a place in British Columbia where children are present, where the operator is allowed to just welcome in anybody who comes in to ask children for pictures of themselves.
Organizations supporting youth say the teen accounts are a step in the right direction for a safer World Wide Web. Kyle Benning, Global News, Toronto.
Major dinosaur discovery up next, what paleontologists have discovered in a remote corner of BC. Most of us don't think of British Columbia as a place where dinosaurs once roamed, but paleontologists are slowly painting a new picture, uncovering fascinating evidence in a remote part of the province.
And we just came across a really big dinosaur bone in this boulder.
It's not easy going dinosaur hunting in BC.
But this looks to be in the range of a big duckbill dinosaur.
Researchers from the Royal BC Museum helicoptered into a remote part of the Spatsizi Plateau Wilderness Provincial Park. It's about 510 kilometers from Prince George. Geologists looking for minerals explored here back in the 1970s and found the first dinosaur bones.
And we think it's a pretty major discovery for BC and for Canada. It's a really unique place to have found fossils.
Since then, paleontologists have found over 100 fossils, including bones that belong to a herbivore called Ferrosaurus. The area has vast expanses of exposed rock in alpine areas high above the tree line.
And these rocks are really hard, so we would need a rock saw and not our hand tools in order to collect this.
That's where fossils embedded in rocks from an ancient riverside date back as far as 100 million years.
What this is going to do is give us a whole different snapshot, a whole different window into different types of dinosaurs and their environments.
They've managed to find all sorts of fossils, from teeth to rib bones, including from a relative of T-Rex and Triceratops.
Part of a vertebra, maybe from a tail.
And they plan to keep searching, revealing more about the ancient inhabitants of BC. And that is Global National for this Tuesday. I'm Donna Friesen, not a dinosaur, not yet. Tonight's Your Canada is Pointe Claire, Quebec. Thanks for watching and hope to see you here again tomorrow. Bye-bye.